Sorry to cut the music short today, but I didn't have a full 5 minutes of setup here. We are live in Avery 106 for anybody who wants to attend in person. But of course, we are being broadcast over here on YouTube, just making sure that the audio is there. And remember, if you've got questions at home or if you've got questions here and don't want to raise your hand, that's perfectly fine. You can use the live Q&A feature on Piazza. I will be monitoring it. We of course do have, looks like chat is disconnected, I don't know why, but if you want to, you can go ahead and chat on that, but I will be paying attention mostly to the Piazza live Q&A. Let me move OBS over, there we go. All right, so again, this is Computer Science 2, but this is the honors version. This is just a smaller course. Typically there are a lot of differences between the main section and the honors section. That's less true of this semester because of COVID and the Faculty Senate resolution on curricular adjustments in response to COVID. We'll get into the details later on. But before we do that, I want to give you a broad course outline, and then of course our schedule for that outline. And the vast majority of your assessment for this course is based on assignments, which are phases in a major project. So that's what our focus is going to be on. I'm going to talk about the phases of that project, the design document that you maintain as you go along in that project, how you can collaborate if you wish, and resources to getting that project done. And then we'll circle back to the syllabus and policies and stuff like that. The philosophy of this course is, of course, Computer Science 2, and it's basically a dovetail into Computer Science 1. So what did you get out of Computer Science 1? Hopefully what you got out of Computer Science 1 is that at the end, you should be able to approach a reasonably complex problem, design a top-down solution, and code that solution in a high-level programming language. Meaning that you can take this problem and you can break it up into smaller and smaller pieces until those pieces are so small that even a dumb computer can do them, right? The key realizations that you should get out of that is that computers are dumb. They don't solve problems. You do, right? There's still that human element there. Computers do exactly what they're told. And so as the problem solver, as the human, you have to break that problem down into such small parts that even a dumb computer can understand. Load this value into this variable and add it to that variable, right? So programs only automate solutions, right? That's all they're really good for. Humans are not good at processing large amounts of data, but they are good at problem solving. Computers are just the opposite. They're very, very good if you told them exactly what to do at processing large amounts of data very, very quickly, but they can't solve problems. And that's exemplified by this truncated Douglas Adams quote here. By the time that you've sorted out a complicated idea into little steps that even a stupid machine can deal with, you've certainly learned about something, something about it yourself, right? So that's the essence of problem solving, is that what that quote is getting at. That you solve the problem by breaking it down into smaller and smaller parts. At the end of computer science 2, you should, same premise, be able to approach a reasonably complex problem and ask design questions first. What problems, what entities or objects should I design to model this problem? How do those entities and objects work together to solve that problem? And what kind of data structures or algorithms can I pull off the shelf to solve this problem more easily, quicker, right? And more efficiently. It's fundamentally different in that it's a bottom-up kind of solution. We start at the bottom and we design our objects first. I need this object because I need to, I think that the project this semester is a used video game store inventory and sales system. So I need an entity to represent a game, or I need an entity to represent a salesperson. How do those, and another entity to represent a sale. How do those three objects work together to model this problem and produce a report, right? And it's exemplified by this other quote from Eric S. Raymond that says, smart data structures and dumb code are a lot better than the other way around. We'll see this at the very end. The whole course culminates in this last algorithm called heap sort, where you can contrast this with a very complex algorithm like quicksort or merge sort. Very, very clever recursion, very, very clever code, right? Versus heap sort, it's just a clever data structure, right? Dumb code, put stuff in, take stuff out. It's the data structure that's doing all the heavy lifting. And that's what you should get out at the end of computer science 2, right? Here's our approximate schedule. Since it's a condensed schedule, 14 weeks. I think we cut a retread of recursion out in the labs. And so we will be able to make this schedule. The first 3 weeks, of course, we got our first lecture stolen, but that's all right. We can make up time for it. There's plenty of padding in this schedule anyway. The first 3 weeks, we'll have an introduction to PHP. Now, that's one of the differences between the main section and the honors section. If you're coming in the honors section, we're assuming that you've come from 155H, where we cover C and Java in parallel. If you don't have any Java experience, that's fine. Watch the main section's lectures for the first 3 weeks. Do your first assignment in Java. Do the Java version of the first 3 labs, right? So that you can be brought up to speed with Java. But if you do have Java experience, then go with the PHP versions so that you get a third programming language out of it, okay? After the 3rd week, we're using Java and SQL. We're not using PHP after the 3rd week anymore. That's just so that you get exposure to yet another programming language. Other programming languages that you might want to start looking at are Python, JavaScript, C#, right, among others, C++. But after that, we get into object-oriented programming in the context of Java. We'll look at databases and database design, so we'll learn SQL, structured query language. That's how you query a database. We'll also look at we'll look at programmatically accessing a database. So our Java code will then be connecting automatically, programmatically to our database and processing data automatically instead of us manually connecting and making SQL queries ourselves. Then we'll get into the database or the data structures and algorithms part of the course in week 10. Looking at list data structures, stacks and queues would probably fall under that if we move that up. Algorithms, algorithm analysis, maybe searching and sorting in the context of algorithms and algorithm analysis. And then finally, more advanced data structures, tree-based data structures, binary search trees, and heaps. Okay? That's the approximate schedule. The 2 items that you will be assessed on, that is for your grades, are labs and assignments. You've already experienced lab yesterday. That was your first lab. I'm still grading those, by the way. I hope to have them graded by the end of the night. They're weekly on Wednesdays. Starter code is provided by GitHub. The instructions are provided on GitHub, the README page. You go through, you complete the tasks, you complete the activities. At the end, there is a suite of JUnit tests, which is unit testing for Java, JUnit, right, Java unit. And if you run those tests and they all pass, you're good to go. You need to hand your code in because those same JUnit tests are run on the web grader. That's what we use to grade you. When I grade you, I'm simply going to run the script, see, okay, they passed all the tests, 20 points, they're done. And that's all it's graded on is the completion. Right? Now, it's not complete if some of those tests are failing. So you need to make sure that all those tests pass before you hand it in. You need to make sure that you hand it in. Triple check it by checking the web grader yourself. Okay? Otherwise, completion can be done asynchronously. You don't have to attend lab in person if you don't want to. You don't even have to attend it virtually. If you get the lab done on your own or with a partner, 3 people can even get together. 4 people can get together and work on a lab. I don't care. In fact, we encourage collaboration of that sort. Just make sure that you're not, handing out code, or a group of 4 people is kind of questionable, right? There's a lot of diffusion of responsibility there. So do keep that in mind, that you need to properly collaborate. But otherwise, your grade is based on completion. Again, you don't have to attend in person if you don't want to. You can. There will be at least one LA in person at every lab session. There will be at least one LA online for every lab session. If you attend online, of course, you can attend throughout the day. You can get your lab done on Tuesday if you want to, right? It's asynchronous. Those are based on completion. Otherwise, 75, that's roughly about 25% of your grade. The other 75% is based on 7 assignments. The first assignment is a standalone assignment. In fact, it's 3 basic programs in PHP if you already have Java experience. If you don't have Java experience, or you want to brush up on Java, then we would encourage you to do it in Java. It's individuals, no partners, right? You need to show that you can stand on your own, that yes, you learned enough in CS1 to pick up this additional programming language, and you can do these 3 basic programs. 2 of those programs you've already done. They're from your, if you're from CS1 last semester, they're from your midterm. I think that they're BSA and like the body surface area, and I forget the other one, but I think it's from your no, it's protein analysis. It's from a hack, or it's from an assignment. And then there's this 3rd one for data processing. If you already did them in Java for your midterm, do them in PHP, right? That tells me that you have enough Java experience that you're good to go on that. Try them in PHP. Yeah. Absolutely. If you want to, you can redo them yet again in Python, then redo them again in JavaScript, then redo them again in C#, right? You're solving the same basic, you've already solved the problem, right? Again, you're problem solvers. Computers don't solve problems. You have to solve the problem by telling the computer how to automate the solution. Yeah.
We're allowed to reference that old work.
Yeah. You're allowed to use it if you want. If you've got some, helper function that loads the contents of a file, go ahead and use it. Although in Java, that's just a one-liner, so I wouldn't reuse it. Otherwise, assignments 2 through 7 are 6 phases of a project. Each phase has you building on the previous phase. So in the first phase, for example, you design your basic objects and do some EDI, which is electronic data interchange. You then use those designed objects and bring them together in phase 2 to produce a report. In phase 3, you design a database to support that model. Then in phase 4, you instead of loading from a bunch of CSV files, you'll be loading from your database, right? So each phase depends on the last phase. So it's super important not to fall behind. It is super important to have a good design in each phase. Otherwise, as we say in industry, you're going to have to eat your own dog food, right? If you have a bad design in phase 1, you're going to be living with that bad design and fighting that bad design all the way through phase 6. You either have, there's a quote later on that we'll talk about, that you either have to find time to do it right the first time, or you have to find time to do it again, right? So having a good, well thought out design is going to be essential to a lot of these phases. Assignment 8 is one of those curricular adjustments that we've made. It is required but not graded. You're not going to turn it in. It's traditionally a written theory, data structures, algorithms, and algorithm analysis. We want you to do it so that you know that material moving on in the program, but we're not going to count it towards your grade. Typically, that would be due in the last week, along with your last phase of your project, along with the last draft of your design document. We're cutting that out so that you have a little bit of a relief given the COVID situation here. Okay? let's see. Off topic, but what is the song playing before the lecture began? I think it was Nirvana. It was a cover of, I don't know if it's Lou Reed or if it's Velvet Underground, but Here She Comes Now. So typically the songs, I just play the songs at the beginning so that everybody that's subscribed gets a notification that lecture is starting, and that gives you a few minutes to get connected. Typically those are cut out of the recordings because you get copyright notifications from YouTube, and so the resolution is just to simply cut it out, and it automatically cuts it out. So you'll only hear it if you listen to it live, probably. Right? But yeah, you can look that up. I don't know if it's Lou Reed or if it's Velvet Underground. Well, Velvet Underground is Lou Reed, and if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, but it was his band. Then he had a solo career. Right? So, and he passed away now. And Kurt Cobain is dead too, so we'll be playing lots of dead music this semester, as always. But the project phases, the theme this year is Modern Geek Gaming, which is a used game store that has products like games, both new and used, digital copies, physical copies, subscription services, services like, I don't know, Switch controller repair. I've had to do that now 3 times myself. Services, subscriptions, and products that they sell. And you have to create a system that supports their business model, produces several sales reports and stuff like that. Each phase is graded based on correctness and design and style and documentation. So the correctness, just because it runs, just because it produces the correct report, that's only worth about 30-40% of your grade. A good chunk of it is the actual design. Is this best practice? Are these classes well designed, or is it just it's just a huge giant anti-pattern, which was something that we'll talk about later on. But it works, but that's because it's been duct taped together, right? That's not a good design. Each phase will have associated with it a draft of your design document. Now, this is an IEEE formatted document. It's basically you writing up the design of the system. You'll be updating this with each phase. Each phase, the draft is only graded on completion. If you turn it into a draft, what we're going to do is we're going to go through it and say, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is good. If this is what you were to turn in at the end of the semester, this is an estimate of the grade that you would receive. You still get your 5 points for turning in that draft. You don't turn in the draft, then you don't get the points. But this is your opportunity to reiterate, right? To go back, to draft it, to redraft it, to update it as you go along. Maybe you had a bad design in phase 1. You go back and you change that design. You document that in your design document. This is the initial design that we had. It didn't work out. This is the new design that we have. Here's why it didn't work out, and here's our updated design. Right? We do provide you with some templates to follow. If you want to use Word, that's fine. We've got a Word template for it. If you want to use LaTeX, that's fine. We provide a LaTeX template for it. All right? The drafts are due 1 week before each phase is due, because we want you to be designing in that first week, thinking about that, and then giving yourself a full week for implementation. Right? And we'll talk about how to go approach that here in a second. Right? Collaboration, we highly encourage you to work in pairs. No teams of 3, no teams of 4, that's just way too many. Right? You can discuss at a high level with other teams general problems, especially on Piazza, but all your work must be original. You can team up with anybody that you want. And we're not going to team you up automatically. If you want us to help you facilitate, we've got a thread on Piazza where you can say, I'm looking for somebody to work with. I'm a night owl, so please keep that in mind. Or I like to work, way in advance. Collaborate with somebody that whose style meshes with yours. You don't want a night owl and somebody who gets up at 4 a.m. every morning working together, because you'll never see each other. Everything has to be an equal share of work. You can't just say, you do phase one and I'll do phase two, right? Then we'll trade off, right? Everything has to be collaborated on. This is potentially a good thing because you can bounce ideas off of each other. Two sets of eyes are better than one, especially when it comes to reviewing stuff or finding bugs or that kind of stuff. It also helps you to develop those soft skills: communication, teamwork, and collaboration, and conflict resolution. If you're having a problem with your partner, right, you have to be able to eventually develop the skills that allows you to civilly and diplomatically approach them and say, you're not pulling your weight. You know, you didn't come to the last 2-minute meetings that we set up to meet with each other. And the due date is coming up here. I don't know if this partnership is going to last. Here's what I need you to do in order to, you know, get up to speed on everything. And if you don't, then we're going to have to separate and go our separate ways. We can facilitate that if you need some help. But again, just the fact that you're teaming up with somebody means that you're working on those soft skills. That is, in my opinion, it's not something that you can really teach. It's 100% experience on learning those things, right? But be careful. Partners can mooch, they can flake out, they can disappear, they can drop the course, leaving you holding the bag, right? So it is, yes, there are some advantages to working with a partner. There are some risks to working with a partner. And also don't think that by splitting into two people, it's only 50% of the work. It's actually, ironically, more work. Because not only are you doing the original work, you're also having to communicate back and forth, right? And that's added work on top of that. So it's not a 50-50 split. It's actually, you're increasing the work by, say, 30%, and then it's a split. So, and it's not always 100% split, 50-50 split anyway. On the same token, don't undermine the learning experience of your partner, right? Don't team up with somebody that has 10 years of Java experience or something like that, and you just started in Java, because that means that your experience may be undermined by them doing all the work. You need to understand every single part of the project, right? If you do team up, absolutely use Git, right? And I made a video on how to get started with Git in the context of Eclipse. Please view it if you need a review, but otherwise make sure that everything is in a private repository. You have 100% free private repositories on GitHub as of 2 years ago or something like that. So there's no reason not to use GitHub. If you want to, you can use Bitbucket or GitLab or something like that. I don't care, but use Git. Right? I can't tell you how many times I've seen people, prior to COVID, of course, in the labs, passing around a USB. Okay, now I just updated one line. Okay, here you go. Here's the copy. Don't do that, right? That is so low rent. Don't do that. And if you do want to pair up, make sure that you're going into Canvas and doing so. You can't. It was asked in the last section. Can people in the honor section team up with people in the main section? Absolutely. That's why we've consolidated everybody. We actually have 6 sections of this course all in one Canvas location. We've got the in-person, the web conferencing, and the online in the main section, as well as a section through BTAA, which is the Big Ten Academic Alliance. So we've got some people from Ohio State, Iowa State, or not Iowa State, but Iowa, also taking this course along with you. If you want to team up with a Buckeye, go ahead, right? They are our betters in football, at least, right? When you want to team up with somebody, of course, you're not going to do it on your first assignment because that's a standalone thing. But you go to people and then project pairs, and all you have to do is say, well, you join pair 1, and we'll join pair number 18, right? And then you both join that pair, and you're paired up, right? You'll get 1 grade, you'll get 1 assessment, and you'll share that grade. If you eventually split up, make sure that you unjoin the project pair. Right? Hopefully that doesn't happen though. Okay. Yeah.
For the first assignment, we have to do that.
First assignment, work alone. Right. Make sure that prove to yourself that you can stand on your own. Right. All right. Take the long view. Make sure that you understand where we're going and why, and read all the assignments now is my suggestion. Read that project overview to understand Don't read all the details, right? Because that's in the future, right, when you're actually having to implement them. But understand what we're doing, right? Understand those phases and how they build on each other, so that you understand that there are consequences to if you don't do phase 2, there's no way in hell you can do phase 3, right? So you're going to have to keep up with the work. Start early. That's my recommendation. That's always my recommendation. Have a good, well thought out design on paper before you even open Eclipse. That's the whole purpose of that design document. We call it whiteboarding, right? Especially if you pair up with somebody else, have a roadmap on a whiteboard out as your first iteration, as your first draft. Then put that to pen and paper in your design document, right? And then go and start actually implementing it. Use proper debugging techniques. Design your test cases early. In fact, doing so and giving us your test cases is worth bonus. 1 week prior to the assignment due date. Why? Because we grab all those test cases, and we've already got a handful of test cases, but all of those test cases, they'll be vetted, of course, and fixed if not correct, and then we'll use those to grade everybody else in the course. Right? That's why we ask for them early and give bonus points for it. Ask questions, attend help hours early. Right? Design. Realize that design comes first, at least it's a higher level CS2 thinking, right? Design objects first and then make them interact. Rather than a top-down solution, you're building a bottom-up solution. Smart data structures and dumb code are a lot better than the other way around. Eric, yes, Raymond? Another one of his quotes is, it's okay to throw one away. Do not fall in love with your code. Do not think that, I put 2 hours into this function. It somewhat works, but it's clunky, it's kludgy, and sometimes it doesn't work. Throw it out, start over, right? That process of having to go through that draft means that you've figured out something about the problem, right? Be comfortable with throwing it out and starting over now that you have even a greater understanding of it. And that's what he means with that. Understand technical debt. Technical debt is if you don't do something right the first time, then you're taking out a loan on your time in the future, because you're going to have to invest more time later on to fix it or to fight that bad design. Technical debt is a loan on your time, right, that you pay interest on. So it can work just the other way, though. If you invest more time up front to do a proper design, then that will pay off dividends instead of costing you interest later on. Right? 2 other newer resources that I'm sharing this semester that I haven't shared in the past in order to try to improve the outcomes of this course. I'll level with you, well, the honors section not so much, but the main section usually has about a 15-20% failure rate. And 99% of the time it's because people are starting at the very, very last moment, right? That they're not properly collaborating. And that's all the more challenging with COVID right now. So the first one, the first tool that I'm going to tell you about is going to solve that second problem. The second tool is going to solve the first problem, hopefully. Of course, you're going to want to use Git because that's standard, right? I mean, it's such a standard tool now. It's like an IDE. It's absolutely essential that you start using Git and getting comfortable with it and using it over and over. But there's this other nice little tool here called Saros, and here's the web page for it. I'll release this later on. But you can, if you don't want, if you're collaborating with somebody that's online halfway across the world, or you just can't meet, or one of you has been exposed to COVID and you can't meet face to face, or you just don't want to, whatever, right? You can use this. This is a plugin in Eclipse that you can install. It's free. That allows you to not only share screens but share, interaction on those screens. So one of you is the host. And then both of you can type, both of you can move the mouse, both of you can do whatever you want in Eclipse. I'm pretty sure that it doesn't allow you to just go and open up their video library or whatever. But to each his own. Try it out and trust your partner. Yeah.
You both share the same mouse?
Well, I mean, there's a client and a server. So the server is the one that starts it, and then the client joins it. And so whoever starts the session, you're editing their copy. And so the remote person, the client, can move your mouse around. Yeah. I mean, this is old. This idea is very, very old. In fact, if you've ever heard of back office, this is something that is like just remote access, basically, a long, long time ago. In fact, this is such a common tool. I've included this link here. It's such a common old idea anyway, that there are at least another dozen or so products out there or plugins that would do the same exact thing depending on what you're trying to do. The only reason that I'm mentioning this one is because it works with Eclipse. It's free. Some of these things do not necessarily work with all IDEs. Some of these things are language specific. Some of these things charge money, right? The price is right here, right? It's $0. If you want to use something else, that's perfectly fine. If you don't want to use Eclipse, that's perfectly fine. If you want to use IntelliJ, if you want to use NetBeans, whatever, that's all entirely up to you. When you set up the project, though, you will be on your own for a step-by-step how-to, because the video that we put together, the instructions that we put together, are only for Eclipse. I do think that we have written instructions for IntelliJ if you like IntelliJ. I'm not pulling out $500 of my own money a year to buy to subscribe to IntelliJ. If you like IntelliJ, great, do it. It's free for students. Once you're no longer a student, you'll be pulling out $500 a year to pay for it. Eclipse is free. It will always be free. Right? That's why we're using it. The second thing that I want to mention is a Gantt chart. So again, this is not necessarily true for honor sections, but if you're the kind of person that just is always waiting to the last minute to get started, if you're the kind of person that needs some external motivation for self-organizing, for organizing your work, then a Gantt chart could be the solution for you. A Gantt chart is simply just a chart of tasks that have to be done, and you started at the, if a project needs to be delivered on such and such date, then you work backwards. For example, assignment 1 here is due on the 12th. And so all I did is I started on the 12th and I broke down the tasks all the way to the beginning, and I created this Gantt chart. Task 1 should be done already. Right? Here's the day. Today is Thursday. The red here is the current date. So we're already behind here, but that's because we lost a couple of days. That's all right. I gave us 3 days to actually read the handout, and knowing that we'd have to have some startup time and cost. But reading and understanding the handout. How many people have read and understand homework 1's handout yet? No? Okay, so that means we're at 0. I have, because I wrote it, so I'm going to mark myself down as 100%. I've done that task. You see that it's grayed out, and I'm still not caught up yet because, oh, well, everybody's done lab 1, right? All right, well, I'm 100% done with that too. Oh, good, I'm on time, right? Today, what do I need to be doing today? I need to be setting up my environment. I need to be, if I'm doing the Java version, I need to be creating those classes and outlining those programs. For example, the BSA program, that's an easy outline. Read the inputs from the user, compute 1, 2, 3, 4 formulas. 5, bullet point number 3, I need to compute the average. Bullet point number last, whatever I'm on, output, create the output. Right? That's an easy task that I can get done today. I can outline all of those programs maybe in 1 or 2 days, as long as I understand them and understand what they need to do. This Gantt chart means that some things are dependent on previous things, so you have to read and understand the handout before you make an outline, right? But some things can be done in parallel. For example, designing your test cases and doing an outline, that can be done in parallel. So they don't necessarily depend on each other, but that's how I wrote this up. Now, if you want to use this, great. Go ahead. If you already can self-organize and you don't want to use a tool like this, fine. That's up to you. This is just an additional tool that I'm giving to those that may need a little bit more of a nudge into self-organization. And of course, you can go in and change it, right? I like doing my labs in advance, so I'm going to go ahead and do all my labs 1 day early, right? Fine, go ahead and do that. Right? I'm going to undo all this because I'm going to eventually share this later on. Right, there we go. But you can see, project phase 2. Read, understand the phase and setup, 1 day. I'm going to plan out my sprint. I'm going to give myself 1 day to plan everything out. This is not necessarily the time frame that I want to do everything, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take a day and plan out all my time. You'll note here that I never put anything on Saturdays and Sundays, right? I also built in some slack days. Submit and test with grader, that shouldn't take you 2 days, right? But I built in 1 slack day in there by planning this out, so that if something comes up, then I've got that slack day in there, right, at the end. And I know that I know that I've got that, and I planned for that contingency. Something always goes wrong, right? Murphy's law, right? Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. I've only done the first few phases. I've left the final phases to you, right? Because by the time you get to that point, you will have, if you're using this, you will have modified it and customized it to how you approach the work. But it's a nice tool. It's used. I mean, Gantt charts are old. They're over a century old, I believe, for project management. And this is a nice little Excel file that does a lot of stuff automatically. Like, for example, again, if you fill out that I'm 50% done, it'll fill it in 50%. Once you get to 100%, 75% here, right? It'll say, oh, okay, once you, it's also kind of acts as a to-do list. I need to do this, this, and this. Then you go back and you check it off. It is so satisfying to take things off of a to-do list, right? You don't want to erase them because you want to know, crossing things out. This is my accomplishments list, right? So keep them there and don't cross them out. But I'll go ahead and share this later on. All right. All right. Any questions so far? Check online. Nope. No? All right, so Administrivia would be the course resources, of course, Canvas. Let's go back over here to Canvas. I'll go ahead and get rid of this and this. We've got course information. We've got getting help. Those are basically office hours. That's where you go to get help. And we've got our schedule here. There's lab 1 from yesterday. Hopefully everybody got done. Lab 2. Assignment 1, due down here. All right, required reading, required viewing. Right? I have pre-prepared video lectures for everything in this course except for the object-oriented programming module. But that's okay because we cover it in lecture. Maybe someday, maybe this summer, hopefully I can get to it and finally make those videos, depending on whether or not I'm doing this course again next year. Otherwise, I've got plenty of videos that you can watch. This is live streamed. We're live streaming right now on YouTube. Those are available immediately after. If you don't want to attend synchronously or you want to go back and what did he say about that one thing? You've got a full recording available to you, right? And often what we'll do is when a question goes on to Piazza, we'll simply just post the video with the timestamp so that you can start playing and see the answer right there. That's 90% of why I like doing videos, because you can just link to them and at a particular time frame and say, okay, there's your answer. Right? Otherwise, design document drafts due, again, 1 week prior to each phase. All the design documents, all the assignments are due at midnight Friday evenings. Keep that in mind because only one person is holding off help hours on Friday evenings. We tried to put more help hours on Friday, but most of the LAs, most of the learning assistants are gone by 7. JL is the only one that's holding evening hours on Fridays, and so you can imagine that if critical mass of people does wait to the last possible second, she's not going to be able to help you, even though she'll be there. And of course, if you try to get help after 10:30, good luck. Right? I wake up at 5, so consequently I go to sleep at 10. So I'm not going to be up that late, right? Especially on a Friday. All right. You also see that we've got labs here. There are no help hours during labs, but it's the same link. You go to the same Zoom link and you can get help. Even though it says labs, you can ask questions about assignments during the labs if you've got the labs done if you want to. Right? Every lab and every help hour is on Zoom. It's the same Zoom link for all of them. If you want to work with a partner and you want us to facilitate that, you can hop on Zoom and we can put you into a breakout room if you want. You can use Discord. The main section, I think, is going to be posting their Discord link if they get to it. I don't own that Discord. It's student-led, not my business. I'm on there, but I'm not going to engage all that much there. I'm going to stick to Piazza for the official answers. Okay. Otherwise, there's the course info. There's the main sections playlist. If you want, if you need it, there's the honor sections playlist. Syllabus is here. We'll get to that next. Come back around to it. There's my information. My hours are Wednesday 1 to 3. I will virtually only on Zoom. All help hours are on Zoom. But otherwise, we've got 9 learning assistants and 2 course leaders ready to help if and when you need it. Okay. Lab information is right here. The 8th section is, of course, 4:30 to 6:20 on Wednesdays. Again, if you don't have to attend virtually or in person if you don't want to. If you get it done asynchronously, that's fine too. Just don't be showing up physically in person to any of the other sections because there's no guarantee that there'll be room. But you can show up virtually whenever you want. Okay, whenever we're holding those hours, unless you like an empty Zoom room. The Learning Assistant program has posted some information about their program. They're going to be trying a revamped cohort system this semester where they're calling it PLANT. I forget what it stands for. Clever acronym though, where they're going to try to facilitate if you're looking for a partner and you want help finding a partner and you don't, you can go to the LA program and talk to them about that. Or if you want to become a learning assistant next year, hopefully when everything has returned to normal, then you can talk to them about being a learning assistant. Okay. Some additional resources here. There's the course textbook with required reading. Guess what? It's free. We're not using Zybooks. We used Zybooks in the main section last semester simply because to force people to read. By CS2, hopefully you'll take one of the quotes in the syllabus, and man, those readings are undervalued, right? I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd read the readings before, right? Whatever the quote is. That's my course textbook. Again, I've got chapters for everything except for object-oriented programming. So it's free. You can't beat the price. Video modules are right here. Piazza, of course, with the web hand-in and the web grader. Note that the web grader has been changed. It's using a CAS, that's Central Authentication Service. So when you go to the web grader, hopefully everybody's familiar with it. When you go to the web grader, you'll be presented with a okay. You see. There we go. I'm already logged in. I'll go ahead and log out here. But you'll be redirected to a central authentication service. You use your same CSE login, same password. But once you've logged in, then you stay logged in. You don't put your password here anymore. You stay logged in until you hit logged out, or I think that there's a 30-minute logout timeout. So if you just it uses cookies too. So if you just close out of it, you should be good. But otherwise, here's how I'm grading everybody for, say, Lab 1. Right. I don't know if I turned anything in. I did. Okay. There. I get 20 points. Right. 10 tests successful, 0 tests failed. Great. I'm good to go. Let's see what else. I guess that's all the resources. Otherwise, if you don't like my textbook, that's perfectly fine. There are a bunch of other free textbooks here. Free textbooks on data structures and algorithms and object-oriented programming in Java. Free textbooks on SQL. Free textbooks on PHP. Free textbooks on Java. Or even full, Code Academy course on Java. All right. Questions so far? Yeah. in the fourth week, I team up with the Writing Center, and we will have a lecture on drafting, but that's more of a process that you go into. Good design, for example, when we get to object-oriented programming, right? We'll go over the solid principles. We'll go over the there's another acronym that I forget off the top of my head, but we'll go over best practices with respect to object-oriented programming and database design, stuff like that, absolutely, as we go along, yes. All right, here's the syllabus. I think everybody meets the prerequisites. Basically, you just need to be able to program, okay? Math 106 is an official prerequisite, but we're not going to be using calculus in here. So it's just there for mathematical maturity. If it's been forever since you knew, if you've forgotten how to take the first derivative of sine, what is it? Cosine or negative cosine? That's why I hate math courses that make you memorize that kind of crap, right? That's what you'll look up, right? But anyway, if you don't remember, I don't remember it, so it's not going to come into play in this course. But of course, you do need to have at least one high-level programming language. Right? Let me zoom in here. By the end of this course, you should have these skills. These are the skills objectives or outcomes. You should be able to more easily pick up yet another programming language. So for most of you, that's been Java and C, and then you'll have PHP. Then pick up Python, then pick up JavaScript, then pick up C#, right? You'll probably, in your lifetimes, you'll only master one or two languages. And even those change, right? Java 25 years ago is not the same Java as today. So you need that skill of being able to pick up new languages or at least dabble in those languages to see what they look like, right? Because languages are changing all the time. New languages are being created. There are hundreds of programming languages. Being able to recognize, use, and design and appreciate programs with an object-oriented programming flavor. Be able to understand and implement basic data structures, as well as how to recognize how and when to leverage them or leverage off-the-shelf algorithms to solve a problem. Be able to identify and analyze basic algorithms. Question online is, what language are you best at? It depends on the day. I don't use anything consistently enough that I don't forget things. For example, what was it? Oh yeah, and the PHP thing that I did yesterday. I thought, oh sure, it has all these C functions. Certainly it has A to I. I forgot. I have no idea what I'm best at. What is the jack of all trades, master of none? Right there. That's my answer. COVID accommodations, of course, with the honors section, we're small enough that everybody can come in person every time that they want if they're in the in-person section, the 150 section. If you don't want to, that's fine. Again, we're live streaming live. All office hours are online only via Zoom. We've already talked about labs. Everybody has their face covering. If you do come, make sure that you've got your face covering. Make sure that that we were told that there were going to be doormen everywhere, but I haven't seen a single one yet. But you'll need your app if you do ever encounter those doorkeepers. Of course, make sure that you're staying safe, washing your hands, keeping away from gross people, etc. Right? Social distancing, of course. Everybody's in one of the green chairs. Right? This is the self-care curricular adjustments that I was talking about earlier. The Faculty Senate passed a resolution in December encouraging instructors to make adjustments for the spring semester in response to COVID. Here are the adjustments that I chose to make. One is that the midterm exam and the final exam have been eliminated. We've traditionally had those. They've only taken like 10, 15, 20% of your grade. So they weren't that big of a deal to begin with. They were usually Scantron, multiple choice, and they tracked with performance in other areas, so there's no reason to keep them anyway, pedagogically that is. The final assignment was made required but not graded, so that I don't want to say optional because that material is essential, and you should be able to do it and know how to do it. but we're not going to grade you on it. The number of labs has been reduced to 14 because 15 weeks down to 14 weeks. But in addition to that, we'll drop your lowest lab grade. So we're only grading 13 out of 14 labs. You should complete them all. But if for some reason you miss the due date or you screw it up or you just get frustrated, I need an off day. That's what the self-care is all about. I'm just going to take this week off and I'll make it up next week, right? Then we'll drop that lowest grade. Right? For those in the honors section, which is you, typically what we've had, every assignment will have, most assignments and the phases in the project will have like 10, 15% bonus points available. Traditionally in the honors section, those were considered part of your regular grade, so the bonus parts were required. We've relaxed that for the honors section, and we will count those as bonus points for the honors section as well. Right? So they become optional, but you should really do them because they're easy enough that it's just, it's gravy on top, and it'll get you some bonus points. SSD office, if you've got services, if you need further accommodations, most accommodations that we get are for exam time and distraction-free environments. So by eliminating those, hopefully we're accommodating everybody already. But if you have additional accommodations, you need to speak with SSD and get those to us as soon as possible, right, if they affect other areas of the course. Remember about CAPS. So if you are feeling stressed out, if you're falling behind, if you just want to talk to somebody, CAPS is a free service, counseling and psychological service. I don't even think that they go through your insurance at all because you can have free, unlimited well-being and care meetings with the counselors there. All you need to do is go there, right? We want to make sure that you're aware of that. The assessment, as I said, are labs and assignments. 13, each worth 20 points each. Remember, there are 14, but we dropped the lowest one, so we only grade 13. That's 26% of your grade. The 7 assignments that are actually graded come out to be 740 points, so 74% of your grade. So you can see that the vast majority of your assessment is based on this. That's perfectly fine because it's really low stakes. As long as you are using, starting early and giving yourself enough time, you can submit, resubmit, fix, redesign, resubmit as much as you want up until that due date. There's no reason that everybody shouldn't get 100% in this course, right? Yes. Go for it. Right. The letter grades are based on, of course, the standard scale here. Weekly labs, we've already talked about those. Assignments. 15th week policy is still called the 15th week policy, even though those are only 14. And by that policy, note that your final assignment and your final due date or the design document are due in that 14th week, that Friday. So keep that in mind. We don't have finals, so that finals week, there's nothing for this course. This course officially ends on the 30th, but that's when your final assignments are due. Okay? Go back over here. No late work is accepted. Exceptions need a medical condition and they need documentation. Okay. Make sure everything works in the web grader. Right. If it doesn't compile, if it doesn't run, you need to give yourself enough time that you can get that resolved. Okay. Academic integrity, honor section. Again, we will be covering some advanced topics because we'll go a little bit faster. We'll cut out some of the extra stuff. But the honor section has been made more like the main section in response to that Faculty Senate resolution for curricular adjustments. All right. There's a blurb about the LA program. Again, go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, here are all the resources that you can use to get help in this course. Just do it the right way, right? Again, you've gone through CS1, so you know how everything works, but don't just come and say, it doesn't work. Okay, well, how doesn't it work? Walk us through that. And if you walk us through that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to solve that problem yourself. Right? Remember rubber duck debugging, right? I've got a rubber duck right here. I use to remind myself that that's where the camera is for online streaming. I made it a rubber duck so that I can talk to it when I'm trying to figure something out. Right? All right. questions so far? No? Online? Nope. Okay. Yeah.
I read one of the academic integrity things, because I'm just legalistic.
Okay.
It says, like, I don't think it likes us copying our old work from previous classes.
Unless otherwise stated, and I'm stating otherwise. Does it say that?
Pretty sure, yeah.
No collaboration with fellow students. Okay, so collaboration is allowed in Computer Science 1, so a result of that collaboration is your own code. You own that code, though, mutually, so it, by extension, it's your code. So that's fine. All right. Okay? Other questions? All right, well then, let's get started. All right? So, again, we'll be talking about Java in the main section. We're going to be talking about PHP in this section. Anybody know what PHP stands for? Oh, I put it there. Personal Homepage Tools. Right? So it was created actually the same year as Java, 1995, so it's 25 some years old. It refuses to die. It is and always has been and continues to be somewhat a really, really bad language. It's a bad language in that it's basically been duct taped together over the years. Right? Features have been just thrown in willy-nilly without too much of thinking about, should we be doing this? Is there any consistency in this design? Right? It's interpreted. We'll talk about what that means here in a moment. But basically in 1995, Rasmus Lerdorf, he wanted, instead of a static web page, he wanted a counter on his web page. And so that required some coding. That required some saving that 500 people have visited. When the next person visits, increment that counter, save that counter, and display that counter. So what he did is he just took, it was written in C, still is written in C. It was just a bunch of C modules for creating a dynamic web page. Right? And he published it and said, hey, maybe other people can use this tool. I call it Personal Homepage Tools. Right? So a lot of it is influenced by C. In fact, that's why I made that mistake yesterday of thinking that A to I was an actual function in PHP because there are so many C functions already built into the language. Why? It's super easy. It was already there. Right? So he just included it in his language. It's just a call from PHP down to the C-level library, so he just named it the same thing. Right? There's a high influence of HTML as well. Though it's C-style syntax, there's a lot of weird things going on in, it's influenced a little bit from HTML. It's influenced a little bit from C. It's influenced a little bit from just whatever he was feeling that day. Right? For example, one of the influences of HTML is that function names are case insensitive. So if you go lowercase FOO, uppercase FOO, uppercase F, lowercase OO, it's all the same function. Right? That's why it's important to have a good consistent style. Right? So it can be weird in places, and I will call out that weirdness as we go along. But otherwise, eventually it became so widely used that it had to have some officialness to it. So they said, all right, fine, it's not longer Personal Homepage Tools. We'll go ahead and backronym it and rename it so that it's PHP, Hypertext Preprocessor. Right? You see the P, the H, and the P? That's what PHP stands for now. Well, what does that first PHP stand for? It's also a recursive acronym, right? It's its own acronym. Right? So, again, it's programming humor. So, what are some key aspects of the language? It's interpreted, it's not compiled, meaning that there are no compiler errors because you don't compile it. It's just a script. You start running the script, and if there's a syntax error on line 5, line 1, 2, 3, and 4 will execute, and only when you get to line 5 will it blow up in your face. Right? A lot of his stuff is simply just errors, or it's simply just warnings. If you have an array of size 5 and you try to access the 6th element, like we saw in the demonstration yesterday, it's just a warning. Right? Warning, there is no such element. You're out of range there. Okay, moving on. Next line, next line, next line. Right? It's interpreted. It's not compiled. Right? But there is familiarity. Right? You use semicolons, curly brackets, name, identifier, rules, etc. Right? Another big deal, a big change, difference in say C and Java is that it's dynamically typed. Right? You do not declare variables or their type. Right? You just use them. Now, what does that mean? If I say x is equal to 10, then what type of variable is x? It's an integer. Later on, 10 lines down, if I say x is equal to ten, the string ten, what type is x? It's now magically changed into a string, right? That's what dynamically typed means. That a variable has no assigned type. Its type is whatever value you've assigned to it at that moment in the program. Right? So, and it can change throughout the program. Right? It might seem cool at first. It's definitely not. Because now just like because it's interpreted, all of your syntax errors, all of your compile time errors are now runtime errors. In other words, you don't know if anything's wrong until you get there, until you actually run it. Right? Now, there are static typing tools that you can use to try to find those problems. But in fact, there's been movements in a lot of dynamically typed languages like this to force static typing. For example, JavaScript. JavaScript is also dynamically typed. Has anybody heard of CoffeeScript or TypeScript or a couple of others? Those are extensions of the language that attempt to make them into statically typed languages, to force static typing onto those languages. I've never seen, well, I shouldn't say this, but I've never seen a concerted effort to try to take a statically typed language and force it to become a dynamically typed language, right? You can see that the trend is in the other direction, right? So, boilerplate stuff. Here's your Hello World program from yesterday. This is a PHP directive. The less than question mark PHP, that says start PHP mode. Anything in here should be interpreted as PHP. Because the original purpose of PHP was to use it in HTML, you can actually interleave this stuff. So here's another example, full example right here, where I've got static HTML here. Here's the beginning of the body of my web page. Here is a header level 1. And only when we get to something like this does it say, oh, okay, this is PHP now. I will start going in PHP mode. Everything before was just static HTML that gets dumped to the output, right? Like you saw in your lab on Wednesday. When you did the birthday program, we had some interleaved HTML. We had HTML and then we had PHP generating dynamic stuff, print hello world or whatever, right? And then we can go in and out of PHP mode as much as we want. All we need to do is close out PHP mode with question mark greater than, and then we can start another one. The interpreter will simply just go, we're not in PHP mode, we're not in PHP mode yet, dump this to the output, dump this to the output. Oh, finally we're in PHP mode. I will start executing this and treating it like PHP. Oh, we're done? Okay, dump, 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 go back into PHP mode and start executing it. So you can do that as much as you want, and it goes top, bottom, left, right. Okay? Not necessarily that you'll want to do that in your assignments, though. One of the big differences, again, as I already said, is variables. First of all variable names begin with a $sign. Why? It's just easier that way. At least you got to put yourself in the mind of Rastus Lerdorf. I have to write an interpreter for this language that I just made. How do I know if the interpreter is going along and finding, okay, there's this word here. Is it a variable? Is it a function? Or is it a literal? I don't know. But if I put in a rule that every variable has to begin with a $sign, that's way easier to program. Right? So every variable begins with a $sign. Right? If it doesn't begin with a $sign, it is treated as a constant. Like pi, pi, or actually m underscore pi, that's from the math library. That won't have a $sign because it's not a variable, it is a constant, and it will be treated as a constant. So immediately you'll see problems like in PHP if you start trying to use constants. So for example, let's go into PHP mode here. And here's a proper variable, x is equal to 10. If I print x, right? This is going to be perfectly fine. Play. There, 10. But if I forget that $sign, that's good, that's okay PHP code. It's just that there's no defined constant x, right? Assumed x, this will throw an error in the future version of PHP. So right now it's just a warning. All right, fine, I'll print x for you, x. I don't know what that is. It's no constant that you defined, but there it is. Right? So weird things happen. Names are case sensitive. Oops. Variable names are case sensitive. Right? So in other words, foo is not the same as foo. Uppercase F. There we go. But that's not true for functions. Functions are case insensitive. We'll get to that later. Right? You don't declare variables. You just start using them. Right? Variable types can change depending on the value you assign. Right? So again, in the example over here, right now it is a, we'll talk about string concatenation later. Right now it is an integer. Later on, if I reassign its value to 10, right, then it will become a string. You can see 10, 10. There is a tool that you can use called type of, I think. Type of, or we might have to look at this up, print type of. Let's find out. Nope. What? PHP type of. It might just be type. If you ever have any questions on PHP, get type. Just simply Google for them, like I'm doing right now. And usually php.net, the official documentation, will come up as the first one. So get type will tell you the type of the variable. So get type, and then let's do that up here as well before we've changed it to 10. And you can see that the first one is going to be like an integer. I don't want to save you. The first one's going to be integer 10, and then I didn't end the line there, and then the next one is string. Later on, if you change it to 10.5, now what's its type? I think, yep, double. Right. Float is a concept, but there is no 32-bit float. There's only 64-bit float. So float is just an alias of double. There are integers, doubles, strings, arrays. What? Booleans. Booleans. We can do that here. True is the same thing as true. Is the same thing as true. It's case insensitive. The keyword true is case insensitive, and we've got booleans there. Or unknown. Null is the same thing as null. Is the same thing as null. I think, yeah. That's not highlighting there. I don't know why, but it's null. Null is null is null. Okay. All right. Oh, here, I've got it in the notes. Internally, PHP supports integers, doubles, strings, booleans, arrays, and objects. It supports true and false. Both are case insensitive, but for consistency, you should use all lowercase. Right? There's no pointers. There's no memory management. There's no dynamic allocation. There's no malloc. There's no free, right? It's all automated garbage collection. So if you create an array of 1 million integers and then you're done with it, you're done with it. You don't have to clean it up. The interpreter will take care of that for you, right? In its own time. There are explicit ways that you can do it, but it's not necessary. You don't have to worry about it. Concatenation is done with a period, like you saw me do up here. If I want to concatenate two things together, it's a period. Why? Plus is exclusively addition. Plus means one thing and one thing only in PHP, and that's addition. Ooh. So, what do you think will happen here? I set it equal to 10, and then I add. Here, let's put this into a string. S is equal to this. Print S. What's going to get printed? What's 10 plus n-line character? Okay, it's a warning. Non-numeric value encountered there because you're trying to add a number to something that's not numeric. But it continues to go on perfectly fine with what you just did. End-line character. But it was 10. Why? 10 plus something that's not a number is, well, still 10. Okay. 10 plus hello is what? Same thing, because HELL, that's not a number. But 10 plus 120, string 120 is what? 130. And no warning, and it's perfectly fine with that. This is something that PHP calls type juggling, right? And it's a very, very apt name because who juggles, clowns juggle. This is a clown language, right? What happens is if it encounters a non-numeric value, it tries its best to treat it as a number. In this case, it says 1, okay, that's number, 1, 2, 0, end line. Okay, that value is 120. So I'm going to take that string and juggle it into an actual number. So 10 plus 120 is, we're good to go. That's 130. 10, 120. What's going to happen here? T. That ain't no number I've ever heard of. So we're done. And what's its value? Like before, we're going to get that warning and it's going to be 0 or 10. And then I give it away. What did it parse here? 0. Okay. What about 120? Hello. Again, same process. It tries to type juggle this. 1, 0, 2, 0. But that's not a number. So what have I read so far? 120 plus 10 is going to be 130 with that same warning. Okay. That warning is completely dependent on the version of PHP that you're using. If you're using CSE's, I think is on PHP 5.3 or something like that, you may not even get that warning at all. This is obviously using PHP version, I don't know, probably like whatever the latest version is. But PHP has been updated over the years. Warnings have been added. You saw before that this warning will eventually turn into a fatal error in the next version of PHP, whenever that comes out, right? There is no PHP 6. Like I said, CSE is using 5. There was no 6 because nobody could agree on it. So they gave up, threw everything away, and said, all right, we'll start over, and the next version of the language, which I believe that this is what probably using, is 7. Right? There was no PHP 6. That's how chaotic this kind of project, this kind of language is. But that's type juggling. That happens in several programming languages. It tries to coerce, or it tries to convert those numbers into those non-numeric values into something that makes sense. All right. So 10 plus, I don't know, negative 32 should be 22 when it finally runs, or negative 22. Sorry, can't get my math there, right? But otherwise, this is going to be a number because of plus. If I do period, that is exclusively string concatenation. So 1, 0 concatenated with negative 32 hyphen 32 is simply going to be a string, and it's 10 hyphen 32. Okay, that's why we use this period, and this period comes from Perl. That's the string concatenation operator in Perl. So C, HTML, Perl, right? All these things come together, and you duct tape it together, and that's what that's where PHP comes from, right? I'll just go ahead and cut and paste this here as the last thing that we'll do today. There's an example of string concatenation. Note here, in one instance, I've used single quotes. In another instance, I've used double quotes. Up here, it supports integers, doubles, strings, booleans, arrays, objects. I don't see single chars in there, do you? Because it doesn't support single chars. A single char is a string of length 1, right? So if you use double quotes or single quotes, that's fine. You just have to be consistent about it, right? That your single quote has to be closed with another single quote. Right? And then if you want to use single quotes in there, you would escape them out. If you want to use n-line characters, it's going to be \n, etc. Right? You can also define global constants using define. Oh, that looks familiar. Define. Where have you seen that before? C, right? Define pi, right? Hash define. That's all this is doing. So he took that from C. You can define pi, the uppercase pi, which you have to treat as a string, so single quotes or double quotes, and this will be its value. Constants are case insensitive, so if you go with pi times radius, r squared, radius squared, or you can go with lowercase pi. Be consistent. Usually constants are all uppercase values, so use all uppercase values. But you cannot redefine constants. If you do something like this, it will be an error. Right? There we go. There. Well, first of all, it didn't know what radius was. So radius. I'll just make it the unit circle there. Oh, it's complaining about it now. Now it's a warning, and in the future it will be an error. Okay, fine. In the latest versions of PHP, you have to do it like this. There we go. What? All right, clear this. And let's run it again. There, that's what I wanted. I just had to clear out all the old messages. Pi is already defined. I don't know if that's a warning or an error. Print hello. If it's an error, then it would not print the hello, but it's just a warning, so it prints hello. Warning, moving on, next line. Okay. All right, questions? Otherwise, we'll pick it up there on Tuesday. All right.